Hi everyone, today we're going to be learning a little bit about portrait drawing. I'm going to be talking about 3 methods that you can use to do a portrait. The first method is going to involve transferring one image onto a clean sheet of paper. Now this method doesn't really require much drawing skill. It's more about tracing, but you're still going to have to understand a little bit about value and trying to create certain values, because you're going to have to be doing a bit of shading as well, and optionally you can color or paint your portrait. The second method, we're not going to be doing that today, but it's going to be about using a grid. All right, and I'll describe that method when we're going to be doing it. That one is going to be a little bit more challenging. You are going to be needing a photo again, and you're going to be making a grid on the photo as well as on your sheet of drawing paper. The third method is from direct observation. Now this method is going to be much more challenging. You are going to have some sort of basic skill in drawing. You need to be understanding things like line and form and value and shapes, and have a little bit of practice in drawing maybe objects or people. So that method is going to be the most challenging, and you should have some basic skill in drawing to do that third method. But for today, we're going to do the easiest basic method that doesn't really involve that much skill. So what you're going to need to get is a picture of yourself or of anyone else, and you need to blow that picture up so that it can fit on a normal photocopy sheet, like 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You're going to have a clean sheet of drawing paper, or you could use your sketch pad. You're going to need a pencil, a normal HB pencil, or preferably a 3B, 4B, or 5B pencil, even 6B. Any one of those types drawing or shading pencils. And the first step will be to take your image and turn it over. All right, so I'm just going to carefully move this, and we are going to turn it over. What we're going to do is we're going to shade the back of the image. Now, people long ago, before there was cell phones and even cameras, when you had to do a portrait, you had to look at someone, or someone had to look at you and draw you. Or you can use a mirror and draw yourself. But there were no selfies being done. This was the only way that you could really do a selfie. Now, what I'm going to do here is just shade the back of the image, and then we're easily going to transfer the image to this clear sheet of paper, this blank sheet of paper, and I'm going to show you how you do that. I'm going to shade. I'm going to try to press hard, and I'm shading more or less in one direction. I want to get a fairly deep tone. All right, I don't want to shade too light like this. I want to get some nice dark tones. Also want to try to get rid of all the little white spaces. Right, the more we can cover the surface, the better. Okay, now I'm using the edge of the pencil, the side of the point, and not the tip. If we use the tip of the point, it's going to take a lot longer to cover the surface, because you see the tip of the point is making really fine lines, So what we want to do is hold our pencil from above like this and use the side of the point. And the side of the pencil usually has letters and numbers, and that tells you how soft the point is, and you usually can get really nice dark deep tones the higher the number is. Usually it has B on it. If you're using a nice pencil for drawing, it would have B on it, and it would start at HB, 2B, 3B, 4B, 5B, and the higher the number, the softer the point would be, and the deeper and richer the tones would be usually. So if you want a really nice dark deep blacks when you're shading, you want to go for higher numbers like 7B, 8B, 9B, and so on. Right? If you use a lower number, like 2B, 3B, 4B, you may not get such dark deep tones. Okay, so that should be good enough for what we're doing. And what we're going to do next is we're going to turn that over and we're going to put it on top of our clean paper here. So now we have our drawing in place. What I'm going to do is outline the edges of all of my shapes that I'm seeing. You have to remember, in doing a portrait, just like drawing any object, there are some basic shapes. We have a kind of an oval shape here. We have the shape of the glasses. You can see the outlines, right? Now, some of the outlines are easier to see than others. Some of the outlines are very strong, and some are a little bit more difficult to see. I'm going to take another pencil. This is an HB pencil, and I'm just going to go over the outlines. I'm going to press hard. That way, when I'm drawing the outline, it's going to print out on the paper below. If I don't press hard enough, it's not going to show. So I'm going to take my time. I'm pressing hard, and I'm trying to outline the shape around the hair. I'm doing that first. Now, it doesn't have to be exact. We just want to try, the whole point of this is to try to put everything in place, to try to get some level of accuracy, even though we can't draw, but we could trace, we can follow a line and try to get the outline of the basic shapes and lines that we are seeing in the hair, the edge of the face. not moving it too far. I'm going to stick it right back here. Now this is painter's tape I'm using, but you could use Scotch tape, masking tape. Masking tape might be better, or whatever tape you have around would be fine. So you could see now that I've moved my drawing that I have an image trace there. Now, not sure how well you can see that image. Alright, so you can see the outlines there a little bit better. Alright, you see these strokes that I made here for the hairline. Right, so that's just the image that I traced. Alright, so now that we have that done, I'm going to show you something that I do to help me get the tones or value in the drawing. So I'm going to use another pencil. This is a charcoal pencil here. What I'm going to do is I'm just making a very simple tonal chart here. Normally I wouldn't put it on the drawing itself. I'll just put it on a separate piece of paper. But for convenience, I'm using this. I'm going to make an 8-box tonal chart. I'm just going to number it 1 to 8. Now basically, what I want to do is get some of the values that I'm seeing in this drawing here. And value is really important in art, especially if you want to make a piece of artwork look realistic. The first box, I'm just going to leave that white. The second box, I'm going to shade it as lightly as I can. I want to like barely touch the surface. The third box, I'm going to be pressing a little bit harder. I'm applying a little bit more pressure this time because I want to get a darker tone or a darker value than this. The fourth box again, I'm going to put more pressure. So each box should look slightly different, a little darker than the one before it. And this box number 5, again, want to increase the value. And how you increase the value is just by pressing a little harder. Okay? Box number 6, you want it darker than box number 5. And then 7, darker than 6. And the last box, which is box number 8, we want it really dark. We want it to look like almost black, if we can get black. Okay, so we have our 8 boxes here and 8 different values or tones. Each value, you should see a clear difference between each of the values here. Number 7 should not look the same value as 6. 6 should not look the same value as 5, and so on. You should see a clear difference between each of the values. All right? Now, how is this helping us? What we're going to do is we're going to use this value chart to try to help us get these values onto this surface. And obviously it's not going to be by magic. You're actually going to have to use our hand. Now this is a charcoal pencil, but if you have, now the reason I'm using this charcoal pencil is going to get really nice dark tones with it, and it's going to be more visible on the camera than using a lighter pencil. So I'm using this. What we're going to do is we're going to look at value number 8, which is our deepest value. And I like to start with the deepest value, but you can start with the lightest value. That's up to you. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to look on my picture to see where I'm seeing this really dark value. So I'm seeing some areas here. This is a really very dark area here. Seeing very dark areas here. All of these kind of look like number 8 in terms of value. All right, so I'm going to put those dark values in first. All along this edge, I see some dark values there. Now, when I am putting in value or shading, I try as much as possible to follow the shape or the form as I'm shading. So I'm shading in the direction that the form is going. So it's a slightly curved line there, so I'm going in that direction. This part of this plait, again, here's pretty dark value. Now when I'm doing the plait, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade in a slightly circular motion. The reason for that is because I want to create that kind of roundness that I'm seeing in the plait, because I like to follow the shape of the part that I am shading. Along the edge of the shoulder here, we have a pretty dark value here, all the way to the edge of that plait. All along the edge of this cheek, I find that this area is pretty dark. Around the edge of these glasses, we have some dark tones here. Now the hair is kind of like receding away from the face, so I'm going to shade this area here in this direction, going from the head or forehead outwards towards the hairline. In here there's some pretty dark, it kind of looks like a number 8 here. All along the edge of the glasses here, I'm seeing pretty dark tones. So everywhere that looks to me like a number 8, just going to put it in. And where the hair is, I'm trying to make these circular, shading in a circular motion, simply because I find that kind of helps to give me the texture of the hair. So I'm using slightly circular lines. Now, there are other places that I'm seeing that number 8. At the corners of the smile here, I seeing a pretty dark tone around here. It's almost like a line. So I'm going to make there number 8. This is at the edge of the teeth and at the corners of the mouth. We have kind of a number 8 there. Where else we have a number 8? I'm seeing what kind of looks like a number 8 right just in this edge right here, along the edge of the neck. It's kind of a number 8 right there. Seeing a little bit of number 8 along this plait here. And I'm using a circular motion here. Not the whole plait, but more like just by the edge. Here. See a bit of a number 8 here. Okay, so I have to be careful because I'm kind of getting my hand in the work. Alright, I'm making smudges, so that's something we have to be a little careful of. I'm just checking to see where else I'm seeing a few number 8s. Just in this area here, I have this little plait. Along this edge right here. Alright, I think that's about it for my 8s. I'm seeing just a little something where I have the teeth. I don't even know if that's an exact number 8. Alright, so now I'm going to look for some 7s. So I'm looking at this tone and I'm trying to see where I can see this tone here. So this area kind of looks like a 7. Alright, and we have some 7s around here. We even have some 7s around here, So I'm going to put those 7s in. That means I'm going to shade a little bit lighter. I did not as dark as I did for the 8. Wherever I think I'm seeing a 7. And I'm still using that circular motion to help me get the shades of the plaits. Seeing some 7s around here. We have some 7 around here. Yeah. Maybe a little bit here. I'm also receiving 7s. I think that might be for all the places I can kind of see a number 7. Alright, and we have some, here's a bit of some 7s right there. And then we have some 6s. The 6s and 7s are pretty close. Just gonna put in a few areas where I think might have a bit of 6s. Just down like the center of this plait, looks like it might have some 6s there. Where else you want to have some 6s? looking at some 5s. I think maybe here might be a bit of a 5, just along the edge of the neck, going like into the shoulder and towards this plait. Might have a bit of a 5 there, coming around the neck here, maybe a bit. This area around the edge of this nose, the nostril, might be kind of like a 5. I'll just put that there. I think that's about it in terms of 5s. Now I'm going to put in some 4s. Now the 4s, I think, where this eyebrow is, just going to put in some 4s just on the top of these glasses. Definitely have some 4s around the cheekbone here and down the side of this cheek. Don't want to get too dark there. I'll just take off some of that a little bit. And keep that a little lighter. Coming down here, that's where I put the line where I said I wanted to put a line to show where there was some dark shading there, and along the edge of this cheek, this kind of smile line here, and there's a little shading on the side of this nose. I don't think that's a 5 though. I'm going to put a little shading inside of the eyes here, just around the edges. Right. I'm putting a little bit here. Now, because this image has the outline on it, I'm not seeing some of the shapes, so I'm just getting an image that is not lined to help me see some outline. Kind of, it's blocking some of the lines that I want to see in the image. Right, so we have some lines around the edge of the glasses, but not everywhere has a line. Remember I told you about implied lines. So the top of the glasses here where I have this line, I'm not really seeing that, so I'm just going to take that out because that's more of an implied line. Okay, and what I'm going to do there, I'm going to draw this line a little darker because I'm seeing a darker edge here. Alright, I'm seeing a little shading, and the glasses is creating like a little shadow here, so I'm going to put that in. I'm seeing some shading here that kind of looks, I would say, maybe like a number 7, so I'm going to put that in. So the glasses is kind of creating a bit of a shadow. There's a little shadow here, a little bit of edge here that I'm seeing. And I am putting my hand on my work, which I'm not supposed to be doing. I want to keep that white. I'm not ready to shade you there yet. I'm just getting some smudges, which is one of the downsides of working with charcoal. You tend to get a bit smudgy, which I don't really want to do right now. All right, and we have a bit of shading around the eye here, which I would say is kind of like a number 4. I'm just going to put some shading on you see and darken this line on the edge of the eye a little. I'll darken this one as well. On the top of the eye where the eyelashes would be, you can see some slightly dark shading there. Even inside of this eye here, and some of this one. Alright, what else we want to put in? Some shading here. Some shading here. A little shading on the edge here. And where the glasses is, I just want to create like a little edge and see right there where the edge, the outline of the glasses are. Right there. And the line doesn't have to continue all the way around because, as I said before, we have implied lines. We know the glasses continues all the way around, but we're not seeing it. So I'm just going to leave out that line there, but you could tell that this should be a complete line. Okay? So I'm going to continue adding some tones, maybe like some threes and 2s. That's where the neck is there. We have some shading around by the chin there. Right, we have some shading here. It might start off like maybe like a 4. Could be slightly darker, maybe like a 5. But then it lightens up. I'm trying to just follow the shape of the forehead there as I put this tone. And it goes all the way down to where the eyebrows are. So it's dark there, but then really lightens up a lot to maybe like a 2. So you're barely touching. There's some shading on one side of the nose, more on this side. There's a little shading on the bottom of the nose there. Very light. I'm going to go light here. There's a little shading just below the glasses. Right there. But we want to try to leave a little highlight by the cheekbones. There's some shading at the top of the lip. Right here. And kind of going around, framing the side of the mouth. And there is some darker shading just under the lip. Maybe I would say could be like a 5 or a 6. And we have a little bit of shading here. Now where the mouth is, remember I said that this was an implied line. So I'm just going to take this off a little bit because I don't want it so dark. because it's more of an implied line there. It's more of an implied line here as well. So remember, the implied line is like a line, you know, should be there because it's part of the shape, but you're just not really seeing it. But you have an idea of where it is. And sometimes the shadows that we put in kind of help us to see the implied line. And we have little bits of shading, like where the teeth are here. I want to put some of that in. And that little bit of shading also helps us to see implied lines as well. So I'm going to darken some of the shading on this side a little bit. Helps to create more contrast, and you can see clearly that one side of the face is in light. There's a lot of light on this side and a lot less light on this side, so you can tell that the light is coming from this direction. Okay, there is some shading on the lips, probably like maybe a 3, and you're seeing it more on this side of the lip, the same side with all of the shading. Maybe like a 2 right here on the bottom lip. The bottom lip is a lot lighter than the top lip. Alright, so we're kind of getting somewhere with this. Just lightening up here, just slightly. And what you're going to do is you're going to just keep going and adding more and more tones. Look for your tones, try to match them up with your tonal chart. And the next time I'm going to do some more work on it as well, and then we're going to look and see if you want to add color. How can you add color? You can add color on top of this if you want to, or you can just leave it as a black and white sketch. Now I want to show you a technique that you could use when you're doing plaits. Now you see this plait here. Let's see if we can try to create that texture and shapes that we're seeing inside of the plait. So it's kind of seeing a shape that looks kind of like this. The edges are dark. It's almost like some oval shapes that's creating the plait. And what we want to do, just following the shape of that oval, in here, and they're not all the same size. Some are a little smaller, some are a little bigger, but it's like a small, very small oval. And sometimes one oval is overlapping another slightly. And then you have to go back in there, so you're going to see like darks and lights in the plait itself. Sometimes one area is going to have several tones. All right, it's not just going to be about one tone. Some very small areas can have several tones in it. So each little part of the plait is almost like a whole form unto itself. And you need to shade each little part. Each little part is going to have darks, mediums, light tones. You might see a number 1, you might see a number 4, you might see a number 3, even within the plait itself, right? In some parts of the plait it's going to be very, very light. Some parts of the plait might have implied lines instead of a full outline. So you have to figure out where that is just by observing the shape. So even though I said that this is going to be really easy, the hard part is trying to put in the tones. The easy part is just transferring the image and getting your outlines. But even in getting your outlines, you still have to be careful. You still have to look for your implied lines. You still have to have an understanding about tone or value, all right, and how to get some of those tones. But it could be a lot of fun. You just have to take your time and focus, right? Now, you see we're starting to get something that kind of looks like a plait here. Just put in the shapes that you're seeing, and it's just a bunch of little ovals. And a bunch of little ovals. Each little oval has kind of like a life of its own. There's some tones, there's some light areas, there's some dark areas, and you know where the lighter areas are, where the darker areas are, and you just keep going in there and looking for your details. Even in a dark plait, like this one behind there, there's still some tones. There's still some ovals. You could kind of go in there and darken some areas and kind of get the hint of a plait happening there too. Right? Even without actually drawing the whole plait, based on where we put our shading, we could see that there's a plait happening there as well. Okay, in the background. And then we have this one. This is also pretty dark, but again, we could go in and create those ovals. Create those ovals, add those shadows. We can see something happening there. Looks like another plait, but it's darker. So the shape might not be as defined as the first one, but there is somewhat of a shape here. All right, and same thing on this side. We have a plait here, and we want to create those little ovals again. And we could also go in afterwards with an eraser to help define some of those shapes by adding light to it. right? And we have more plots and more definition to put in. Where I had these dark marks here, that's kind of like helping you define. Remember I said there were some dark tones here? You can still put in, instead of an oval, almost like a U shape, because you want to show that there's like a plot happening there as well. And the dark lines kind of coming down the center of that plot. And the edges of the plot are a lot lighter, less defined. Alright, some dark marks here also, that's making a bit of a plot here. Alright, so you just keep going, keep adding details. If you find that you darkened an area too much, you just go in with an eraser and take out some of the tones that you put in. Alright, so that's pretty much how we're going to be doing this. And I'm going to continue working on it, and we're gonna see the finished piece when we're all done. Just remember that, you know, it's just take some practice to get familiar with looking for your tones. Alright, it's not just a matter of just shading the whole thing one tone. Try to find your different values in your piece. So the next time what we're going to do is we're going to look at doing a portrait using the grid method. So this method was transferring from the image to your plain paper. Alright, so thanks for listening. And join me again to do the grid method of portrait drawing. Bye.